BLUELOCK's Neo Egoist League has officially ended, which means the U20 World Cup arc has begun. But before we get to the U20 World Cup itself, we have to make some preparations with BLUELOCK's final training arc. The last thing before we head into the U20 games, I've come up with a theory or prediction on what the boys will be doing with the 50 days before the World Cup starts. From testing new chemical reactions, possible returning characters, or maybe even new characters being introduced, I'm gonna cover everything I think will happen before we get into the actual World Cup, so let's go. So firstly, why do I think we're getting a training arc? Why aren't we just skipping straight to the U20 World Cup? Now, honestly, does BLUELOCK need the training arc? Not really. The NEL was literally that. We saw Isagi evolve like a literal Pokemon, and now he's overpowered. Combine that with the rest of the players, Japan is looking very strong. However, there is one important thing missing, and that is formations. We haven't decided on any formations, chemical reactions, or just who works well together on a team. As well as narratively, it just makes sense to give some more development. The NEL highlighted characters like Isagi and Rin. Now we can give some more highlight to characters like Bachara or underrated characters like Hiryo. There's also a lot of plot points that haven't been addressed yet, so there is no way we're skipping straight to the U20 World Cup without addressing those. I'm talking about Itoshi Sai, will he play, Baratsutsu's conversation with Ray Dark, who will be Japan's captain, what happened in the wild card, but at this point that's lost media. In general though, you can see how there is a lot of questions to be answered, and I think this training arc can answer most of them, while giving some time to address other plot points too. Because I don't think the training arc will be the only thing we get before the U20 World Cup. Possibly we see some new characters being introduced, which I'll talk about later. But I do think this training arc is gonna be the first thing we get, because again, it gives Kaneshiro a lot of time to focus on other characters' developments. In an interview before, he said Bachara, Kunigami, and I believe Sendo will get some focus later on in the series, and this could be a perfect time to do that. Another big one is Ryo, and how will he develop after Nagi was eliminated. At this point in time, chapter 302 hasn't come out, but the title is called I'm Done or Forget It. That chapter title could be referring to Ryo and his motivation. It obviously hit him the hardest, as in chapter 301, we didn't even see him have a single bit of dialogue. So going through his development, how he copes without Nagi now, how will he become stronger by himself now, all those plot points could be addressed. Everyone wins in this scenario. One of the biggest gripes in the Neo Egoist League was that only certain players got development at times. Like specifically, PXG was mostly a Rin versus Isagi versus Kaiser show, so it's basically giving the highlight to the players that didn't get any when they played in the NEL. And I think a perfect way to do this is in an 11 versus 11 BLUELOCK versus BLUELOCK match. As crazy as it sounds, just imagine how hyped that would be. Literally every single player we know in one single match, besides the trash can that is Fukaku Gen, but literally every single one of the BLUELOCK players on the pitch instead of fodder random NEL players, fodder U20 players. We've never had this once in BLUELOCK. An 11 versus 11 scrim just gives so much benefits. We get to see new chemical reactions between players. Everyone is playing, so fans would enjoy seeing their favorites on screen. Again, I have to emphasize how we have never seen a fully stacked 11 versus 11 once in BLUELOCK. From the goalkeepers to the defenders to the midfielders to the strikers, every single player we at least know are strong enough to make the top 23. Compare this to other NEL games like Bastard versus Barca, where you only had Atoya and Bachara for Barca, or even the PXG game where all of the defenders legit did nothing in the game. Not one pass, not one block, nothing. This way, every single player can do something instead of just some players not doing anything, and the stakes are a little higher because it's more competitive. They're actually good players. The U20 game suffered from this too, where it was Aiku and the trash can friends until Sai and Shido came along. It just makes it way more realistic that this team is a threat if every single player is actually good. Obviously, there is 23 players, so some person has to sit out, and you might be wondering how exactly would an 11 versus 11 work, or how would they even do it? Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. Again, this is just a theory, but I think there is two possibilities here. The first one is that Isagi and Rin are captains, formations for their respective teams, as they are both tied at the number 1 spot. So from the top 23, they can pick and choose who they want on their team dodgeball style and create their own formation. It would be hyped to see who Isagi and Rin would pick as their ideal team, or who would they want to form chemical reactions with, but I think a better way is by going through the salary system or their BLUELOCK rankings. From top to bottom, you can pick what team you want to join and what position, and it's fair because it's based on your rank. The higher you are in your rank, you can choose what position you want to play, and if you are lower in the ranks because of your salary, well, that's also on you because you barely made it through. I think this would be way more interesting to see who would pick what team and what position they would pick. If you're at the lower end of the ranking, you obviously can't pick a forward spot because someone else is going to take that spot. Naturally, there are going to be some players that just fit in their positions, and I'm assuming that's what they're just going to play. For example, Gagamaru in goalkeeper or Aiku in defense, but the rest can flex around, and I think that would be very interesting to see filling out the rest of the spots. So it'd basically go from top to bottom with Rin and Isagi being able to pick any team and any position they want. They might end up being on the same team or go against each other again. It does seem a little repetitive if we get Rin versus Isagi again after PXG, but the world does want to see them as rivals. And if you're not used to Isagi versus Rin at this point, then I don't know, you might just be reading Red Key, because we've had this since the second selection. Nothing has changed. We would then go down the list towards the number 3 spot, which of course is Shido. What will he pick and what will he do? I honestly think he's very interesting. I think he's going to be playing with Isagi because we've barely seen them play. A chemical reaction between them would be cool because we know that Shido respects Isagi and they only had a little time playing together during the 3rd selection. Obviously, this would keep going down the list until both of the teams have 11 players. Maybe we get some old combinations back like Bachira and Isagi. Maybe some players who specifically want to go against Isagi, like some of the Bastard players. I can definitely see players like Yuki Miya picking the opposite team that Isagi is on. You can just see how endless the possibilities are and how much hype this would genuinely bring. It would also make sense narratively for Ego to see who works well together, who does good at their certain positions, so he can make multiple formations for the U20 World Cup. That way, it won't just seem like Ego is throwing players on the pitch, and he isn't like that in general. There is actual experience and synergies we've seen because of this training arc specifically. And like I said earlier, character development wise, this will be huge for those sort of underdeveloped characters. Maybe we get some new backstories, some new awakenings, stuff like that. Wild Card is a big one. Ryo's Awakening is a new big one. Atoya, Kiora, even Fukaku Gen, all these underdeveloped characters can get some time to shine as well. I know people want to see the U20 World Cup right away, but I think a training arc like this would make people so happy that they don't care to wait a little bit for the U20 World Cup if they see everyone in an 11 versus 11. If it was something like the 3rd selection, then I'm not sure if people would be as hyped to see a training arc. They just want to get it over with and skip to the games. So by bringing in hype, this 11 versus 11 can basically develop characters, set up formations, and narratively, it just makes sense because there is no way we're hopping straight to the World Cup with no plan and no practice. After this training arc though, or even before it, I think we'll get some answers to a few questions. Barat Suta, or the person who manages the JFU, is the newest volume cover, so I'm assuming he's gonna have some important role in the upcoming chapters. The volume ends on chapter 303 or 304. In general, just a few more chapters left until it ends, so it makes sense if he does something within the chapters his volume cover is on. However, we've also seen some players with volume covers do absolutely nothing during those times. Like, I'm pretty sure Kyora's assist wasn't even during his volume cover. Even then though, I think we'll get some answers to what he proposed to Ray Dark. It was sort of out of the blue, and it seems like a very major thing plot-wise. Maybe hosting the U20 World Cup in Japan, where BLUELOCK TV can stream it. Some people even say he's gonna extend the roster to 26, which is kind of going out on a whim, but it relates to Itoshi Sai and Nagi. Itoshi Sai is a big mystery, and I think during this time we'll get some confirmation for his character, whether he will play for Japan in the U20, or if he's just skipping out, or maybe even playing for another team. Nagi, after getting eliminated, if they do increase the roster size, maybe this is his second chance. On the volume cover as well, there is a little Nagi symbol symbol. I don't even know. This might just be maximum copium or a theory that's so bad it's somehow good. Regardless what they choose for Nagi, I would be fine with either option, him coming back for a last chance, but it would definitely be better writing for him to just stay eliminated for now. Lastly, we have to get new hints towards rivals or new countries. During every arc, we get some sort of hint towards the new characters. At the end of the U20 arc, we got hinted at for the blue rose for Kaiser. End of the second selection was Itoshi Sai. End of the first selection was Ryu, Tokimitsu, Yukimiya, Atoya, Hiyori, and Nanase, all of them at once. So there is a hint for a new character at the end of every arc. I think Kaneshiro will most likely hint towards a lot of characters simply because of how many different countries are going to be playing in the World Cup. Like, I expect other countries to be shown and maybe multiple players just for one country, maybe even hinting at a big bad superstar player like a new Gen 11, or maybe even name dropping every new Gen 11 player and revealing them all, since we can assume they're all going to be playing in the U20 World Cup. I'm smiling just thinking about it. I know we're theorizing, but I'm just so hyped for whatever decision they decide to make. We are finally getting completely new BLUELOCK content, and it's super exciting. Remember that this is just a theory. They could very well skip to the U20 World Cup and this whole thing gets thrown out of the window, but it's fun to theorize and discuss. Let me know any predictions you have on this upcoming arc. Are we getting a training arc beforehand? What will happen during the downtime? Leave it all in the comment section down below. YouTube also really thinks you'd like this video right here, so make sure to check that one out. Anyways, if you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.